Does your child ever have a meltdown when you tell them no? If saying no to your child sometimes triggers acting out or a big meltdown or tantrum, then what I want to suggest is that you teach them how to accept no. Because a lot of times we just tell kids what we don't want them to do. Like, we don't want them to throw a tantrum, we don't want them to freak out, we don't want them to have a meltdown in the grocery store when you've just told them no, that they can't have that candy bar that's sitting right there in front of them at the checkout counter. So instead we want to teach them what we do want them to do and then help them learn how to do that. So the skill that I teach kids is how to accept no, and that they're to look at the person and they're to say okay and then move on. Now for some kids I might need to help them understand what it means to move on, so that means to just continue on with whatever you were doing, like going through the checkout line at the grocery store, or maybe they've asked to do something and they're at home and you've told them no, and then they're just going to get back to being busy with whatever else they might be doing or playing with at that time. But they're basically to move on. So once they understand that idea, that it's that they are to calmly look at the person, say okay, and then move on, then we want to set up some experiences for them to practice this. And it helps for you to coach and remind them of their skill. And so that whenever you might going to be in a position where they're going to ask for something, that then when they ask you, you say, oh, this is one of those times I might say yes or I might say no. So if I say yes, then obviously you're going to be happy and you don't have to teach them a skill maybe for how to handle accepting yes. But if they're going to be told no, then you get them to say, okay, if you tell me no, then I'm going to be looking at you when you talk to me, I'm going to say okay, and then I'm going to move on. And then at some of those times you'll be saying yes, and then all that has happened is they've had a chance to kind of practice and remind themselves of what the skill will be. Because if you kind of remind them of that skill at times, not only when you're going to tell them no, but also when you're sometimes going to tell them yes, it keeps them kind of in a good frame of mind. They're kept guessing. They don't always have to then deal with the negative emotions that come up from being told no. But then sometimes they're going to be told no, and you're going to told them ahead of time how you want them to handle that. And for kids who need to be in a reward system or who need some external motivation to help them use a skillful approach, then I would tie it into their reward system. So you could tell them, whenever you accept no appropriately and you're able to look at me and say okay and move on, you know, I'll mark it on the chart we're keeping on accepting no, could be their goal. And then they could be earning some kind of reward or privilege or time with you or something like that. So in a way they know there's something in it for them to accept no. I also suggest that you pair this with making sure that you never are giving in to negative acting out when you say no. Because if you are, then every once in a while you're rewarding or reinforcing having a big flip out over being told no. And that they sometimes would get what they want, and we know that in intermittent reinforcement schedule, which means every once in a while giving in to the acting out behavior and giving them what they want, is the most rewarding reinforcement schedule that there is. So if you want to make sure to keep that pattern of behavior going, of tantruming when they're told no, then every once in a while give into it, because that'll keep it going for sure. So, you know, most of us, if we do that, it's certainly not our intention. We're just doing it because it feels easier at the time to give in or to stop the negative behavior. But if you really want it to stop, you have to be, you know, religious about never giving into that behavior, and teach them what you do want them to do instead. So set it up in a positive way, find fun ways for them to demonstrate their skill to other people. Have them practice with you, have them practice with you accepting no. So sometimes you can set up some fun games with the kids where you're asking them for something and they're telling you no, you know, in something that would be appropriate and fun to role model with you. And then you practice saying, looking at them, saying okay and moving on. Just some different ways so that they're learning what the skill is and what you want them to do differently instead of having a tantrum. So my name is Barbara Lester. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I have about 30 years experience working with children and adolescents. If you're interested in these kinds of tips, please subscribe to my channel, and thanks for stopping by.